George Teague, who has some takes, I'm sure, getting ready for Alabama against Georgia. And George, it is great to see you. Are you excited to get back to Tuscaloosa for this huge game on Saturday?
I'm very excited. It's I still got a lot of family in the area in Montgomery and the surrounding areas of Tuscaloosa. So not only do I get to watch some good football, but I get an opportunity to visit some family and grab some great food while I'm in Tuscaloosa.
What are your must visit food spots? Let's talk about that before we dive into football.
Well, one thing I never miss is Buffalo Phil's. I got to do that. I got to go to uh Bob Howard's as well. So I love wings, as you can tell, right? So one on campus, one off. And Bob Howard's a great friend. I would be remiss if I don't go grab some ribs. So I'm gonna go hit Dreamland while we're there. That's why I come in early. So I got days to be able to do a lot of different things in a lot of different places.
That certainly sounds good. So again, you're coming in this weekend for Alabama against Georgia, but let's talk about the first 3 weeks of the year for the Crimson Tide. Three really good wins. Have you been impressed so far with the beginning of the Kalen DeBoer era?
I have been, and I've watched, reviewed a lot of the tape to kind of see what's going on. Diving into the true nuts and bolts of it, and you just see the amazing talent that we had. Sure, things were rocky a little bit in a couple games, but you see constant improvement. You see the adjustments that the coaches are making. So I'm pretty excited about where we're headed and what we're going. And as long as we continue to progress, particularly in the back end in the secondary, I think we're going to be fare well throughout the year.
Yeah, what's different about this Alabama scheme on defense in regards to the secondary versus what maybe we saw in previous years with Coach Saban?
I think the biggest thing is how he's allowing them to use their eyes and actually play the ball a little bit more. That's one piece, and it's different. I actually love it. I loved it as a player, being able to try to view the ball, but it does change your technique and how you have to lean, or how you have to use to cut people off. So it's drastically different than just playing the way man to man that Nick Saban used. Not bad one way or the other. It's just different. So if you're coming out of that scheme and trying to do that, you have to adjust to that. In the end, I think it's going to be very beneficial, right? You just have to know when to turn. So sometimes we see guys that are kind of seem like they're open because they're, you know, getting behind us a little bit, but a lot of that's just because your eyes are focused in the backfield and not necessarily on the man.
You've been impressed by Malachi Moore, not only with the play that he's had so far this season for the Crimson Tide, but really his whole career and the way he's been a leader and a captain for this team.
Well, I got a little bit of favoritism about anybody that wears number 13. I don't know why, for some reason. But I've absolutely loved what Malachi has done. I think he is a true leader. I like his energy. I like how he tries to motivate people, whether that's being a little bit more flamboyant or actually speaking to someone. I've had an opportunity to speak to him a couple of times, and he's a great guy. But his play, as physical as he is, and the way he comes up and he arrives with bad intentions, man. And you love that out of a safety, but um, just his ability to be the veteran in that secondary and get them going in the right direction is key.
Really is good to see for the Crimson Tide. You look to the offensive side of the ball. Once again, Jalen Milrow at quarterback. Where have you seen him take some steps forward going into this year?
His strengths, Coach DeBoer and the gang have really helped improve on the his mid range passing. I think that's one key. We know he can throw the ball a mile. He can hit anybody there. We know he can run the ball, and it's definitely a threat there. And I absolutely love that. But you see the improvements in that area. Pre-snap reads, you've seen how they've worked with him and give him the ability to be able to change the direction of a play or protection. Um, and just put the offense in a better position and giving him the authority to do that. So that's going to help him, you know, as he continues to prepare for the next level of football as well.
Do you like the fact, too? We can talk about the receivers in a moment, but Alabama can still play that smash mouth running style with Justice Haynes and Jam Miller. That's got to bring you back.
No, I absolutely love it. Anytime we can run the power game, and that was kind of, I didn't know what coach was going to do with that. Is he going to be more zone, which we run zone, inside, outside zone, but the power running game when you're getting into gap schemes, pulling guards, because a lot of people think, oh, you're just too big, you can't really do that. No, that is not what this is what we do at Alabama is we pull people and we try to hit you in the ear and move you out of the way. And so I love that when then you have powerful backs like Jam Miller and Justice Haynes, and you add in a runner like Jalen into those schemes. Jet sweeps that look like inside outside zone. You just have so much that you got to prepare for that it makes it hard for defense to defend you.
You said you're partial to number 13s. I imagine David Palmer's pretty partial to the current number two that Alabama has right now. And Ryan Williams, Chris Stewart on his first touchdown said the deuce is loose. So that's got to bring you back seeing the speed the number two has for Alabama.
Yeah, well, I didn't want to. It was hard to cover David Palmer in my days, and I know it would be very hard to cover Ryan Williams. I don't care how young he is or what he's doing. The dude got some wheels, man. Uh, but he also showed some other pieces that he's able to make people miss, and run different routes where it's not just the go route. It was really interesting in the pass game against Wisconsin where you saw that he had to use his brain to actually get open on one of his long passes. So he's accepting coaching as well. So I'm excited to see how this young kid is really going to be, and we're going to need him to make a big play or two or three in this game on Saturday night.
What do you love about the atmosphere now that we have at Saban Field at Bryant-Denny Stadium?
Man, I'm jealous because when I played, we didn't have all the flashing lights, and lights you could just turn off and they pop right back on in 2 seconds. If we turned our lights off back in the day, they were off. You wouldn't come back to to the next day. So, one of my favorite part, and it's probably me being a kid in it. There's a lot of traditions that we have at the university and at the game, but for some reason, it's like your background. I love that part when we take out our phones and we just go lights up, lights down, lights up, lights down. They start getting cranked and all this kind of stuff. And man, I'm just like, I don't know why I like these doggone camera phones so much and these lights, but that's one of my favorite parts of the game as well.
It makes such a great atmosphere. And again, this atmosphere is because of great football from the Crimson Tide and a great opponent in the Georgia Bulldogs. Have you watched much of Georgia this year? What kind of game do you expect coming up on Saturday?
Yeah, so I'm going to say they're similar to us as they've always been, right? They're big, they're fast, their offensive line is strong. People say we need to get some pressure on Carson Beck. Well, we do, but it's going to be hard because they're solid up there. I think the best thing that I'd say this the right way, right, is that Tate Rutledge isn't playing for them, or we would think anyway. So maybe there could be somewhere where you can try to find some matchups to get some pressure on Carson because he has enough time to stand back there and throw around. It could be dangerous. I'm really concerned about what they do with their slot receivers. They work very well in space. So our safeties, linebackers are really going to have to play a key part in making sure we control that passing game of theirs. But ultimately, it's going to come down to the up front, the big boys. It's always up there. How do we match up with that? Because ETN, he's good, man. He can find some gaps and some creases. So we have to maintain gap control and not let him get loose.
And then for a game like this, where there's all this attention, college game day in town, a former president coming to visit again, the buzz is there for a ball game like this. So you were part of some huge games during not only your college days at Alabama, but in the NFL as well. How did you as a player kind of stay centered and keep your mind on the right things during a week like this?
Because ultimately it's about your teammates and the coaching staff and the community. Because you can get lost in some of those things. You see all the stuff going on campus. They're putting up chairs and tents, and the RVs, motor coaches are rolling in. You got family all over the places that it's just the biggest game on the stage, and you can get lost in that early on. But then you have to reset. Particularly as you get closer to this. Close the doors, close the windows, close your blinds, block out all the noise because when you get ready to take that bus ride over to the stadium and you get off, you have to be totally locked in. So that's the difference between big time players a lot because some people get caught up in all the other hoopla and what are people eating and doing all this kind of stuff. How we started, like I can do now. I'm going to be worried about how we tailgate. They can't be worried about the tailgating. They got to be worried about that first kickoff. And are they actually ready to go mentally for a game like this?
We know you're ready to win the tailgate. George Teague joining us here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network. What can you tell fans about what you're up to these days and how they can follow your work?
No, I appreciate it. So you can see this part right here. I actually am an athletic director at John Paul II High School in Plano, Texas, by day. Some of my other passions also include have my own podcast. So it's Teague's Take Podcast, where we actually talk Alabama football every single Wednesday night, 8:15 p.m. Central Time. We watch film, we go back and talk about it. I absolutely love it, which has led into me doing other things like I'm an NFL analyst on CBS. Sports Texas here in Dallas. That's where I'm at, and also with DallasCowboys.com. So kind of I get to stay around the game and in the game because of the film watching and trying to break it down. But this body, this shoulder right here, this neck right here, it's not up to par to go play anymore.
No, certainly not for our Alabama fans that are also Dallas Cowboy fans, and there are a lot. Can the Cowboys bounce back after what we saw last week against the Ravens?
Uh, can they bounce back? Yeah, we need them to bounce up because they've been down a whole lot too low. They got a good squad, but I just think this is going to be a difficult year for them, just because personnel has to match up. You can have key pieces. It's no different than college football or anything. It's very competitive, and if you don't have defensive linemen, which I don't think Alabama has right now, completely as good as it needs to be, and if you can't run the football, it makes it hard for you to win.
Certainly does. Well, George Teague, you did a lot of winning during your playing days here in Alabama, and we can't wait to have you back in town to enjoy not only all the great food, but the great football we're going to see on Saturday. Just thank you for your time. We look forward to catching up with you again down the road. Roll Tide, George.
Roll Tide.